Welcome back to the Digital Town Crier, where we bring faith, mental health, and the human experience to life. I'm Lola, your AI co host.
And I am Gladys Wilson, a licensed professional counselor. Today we're discussing the mental health condition that is often misunderstood and frequently misinterpreted in movies, social media, and everyday conversation, and that is bipolar disorder.
Many people casually use the phrase, they're so bipolar, to describe someone who changes moods quickly. But bipolar disorder is much more complex than ordinary mood swings.
It absolutely is, Lola. Bipolar disorder is a serious mental health condition involving specific shifts in mood, energy, activity levels, and the ability to function in everyday life.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is bipolar disorder?
So, bipolar disorder is a mood disorder characterized by periods of emotional highs called mania or hypomania and periods of depression. So these episodes can last weeks, they can last days or even months, and can specifically affect relationships, work, finances, and just the person's overall well being.
So, this isn't someone feeling happy one minute and sad the next?
Nope, and that is one of the biggest myths. Bipolar disorder involves sustained mood episodes that are much more intense than normal emotions upwards or downwards.
Let's talk about the most interesting symptom, mania. What does that look like?
So, mania is a period of usually elevated mood, increased energy, and heightened activity. During a manic episode, a person may feel invincible, or extremely confident, need very little sleep, typically talking very rapidly, having racing thoughts, engaging in risky behavior, spending excessive amounts of money, making impulsive decisions, and becoming unusually productive or creative. So, an example is imagine someone who normally sleeps 8 hours a night suddenly sleeping only 2 or 3 hours for a week and still feeling energized. They may start multiple businesses, spend thousands of dollars. They may believe that they have special abilities and make major decisions without understanding the consequences. So, I have worked with people with mania before, and some of the risky behavior that I saw in the early on when oh gosh, what is this? What was that dating site called? Oh God, it slips my mind. It's the one where you swipe left or right. Somebody I was that came into therapy, and I was doing therapy with them. They kept swiping and they kept meeting up with random strangers and having sex with them, and that was part of the mania and the making decisions without thinking of the consequences of those decisions. Another person that I did some therapy with was somebody who spent a ton of money all in a very short period of time, and this was money that they did not have. And so, luckily for them, they were able to return some of the items that they had bought. But this was so out of character. This is not something that they typically would do. And the people around them started to realize that, that they were in this manic state because of the financial hole that they were getting themselves into.
To outsiders, it might even look like they're thriving because our world encourages some of those things.
Of course, I also have a story to share about that. So, when I was in training to become a counselor, I was shadowing somebody, and we were meeting with this client. So they purposely did not give me much information because they wanted me to, get my diagnostic cap on and see if I could ask the right questions and kind of go through the process with this client to figure out, okay, what what brought them into therapy, what is the problem they're experiencing, and what's happening in their life. And when the person was done talking about everything that was going on, they were going to go for this job interview, they had started this project, they were going to go meet with somebody, and all of these different things. I at the time, as a newbie, I was like, oh, that sounds fantastic, oh my goodness, I hope your interview goes well, and all of those different things. And when by the time everything was done, I realized that this person was manic. This person was absolutely manic, and these behaviors and these things, while the quality of it sounded good, but this person in their manic state. And so it's really, really important that we know the individual that we're talking to, and we know the individual we are um, around, because when you know that person's personality, the family knows that person, and so they see, hey, this is not their typical MO. And then as a therapist, you kind of have to suss out, like, how is what they're explaining to you affecting their life. And that's the basis of it all, is how is what the person is doing negatively impacting their world. Because nothing's a mental health condition, nothing is a mental health issue unless it's impacting your world in a negative way.
To be honest, we are taught to go get it and be type A and to the naked ear. That sounds like what we should be doing. Let's talk about the downside. What about the depressive side?
So, depression in bipolar can look very similar to major depressive disorder. Symptoms include persistent sadness, fatigue, feelings of hopelessness, loss of interest in activities, difficulty concentrating, changes in appetite, sleep disturbances, and thoughts of death or suicide. So, an example of this is someone who was previously energetic and engaged may suddenly start to struggle to get out of bed. They may start missing work. They may start isolating themselves from their family and feeling overwhelmed by simple everyday tasks. This is the one we recognize a little bit more because, like we just talked about, our world is for the type A personality. And so it's harder to spot when somebody is in that manic state. But when somebody is depressed, that is a lot easier to recognize. And sometimes it doesn't go very well because then the people around them start thinking, oh, they're suddenly become lazy, or different things like that. And there's a huge negative connotation to that depressed state.
Wow. The contrast between those two states can be dramatic, and cultural expectations interpret the two in very different ways.
Yes, it can be very dramatic and often confusing for both the person experiencing it and their loved ones.
Many people don't realize there are different types of bipolar disorder. Can you explain?
Yes, so there is bipolar 1 and there's bipolar 2 disorders. Bipolar 1 involves at least one manic episode, so the mania may become severe enough to require hospitalization or cause specific impairment. A person may or may not experience major depressive episodes. For bipolar 2, it involves episodes of depression along with hypomania. So, mania is a less severe form of mania. The person may appear highly energetic, productive, and outgoing, but the symptoms are still outside the norm of behavioral patterns.
So, bipolar 2 isn't a milder illness?
So, no, it is not. So, while the manic symptoms are less severe, the depressive episodes can be very intense and they can be very debilitating.
You mentioned sleep earlier. Why is sleep such a big factor?
So, sleep disturbances are one of the hallmark features of bipolar disorder. During mania, people often sleep very little, and they may not feel tired despite the minimal rest that they're getting. During depression, they may sleep excessively or they may struggle with insomnia. So, sleep deprivation can actually trigger manic episodes in some individuals.
That is why everyone should get their 8 hours of sleep. Let us know in the comments how much sleep you're getting. Let's discuss impulsivity.
So impulsivity is common during the manic episodes. It includes things like recklessly driving, gambling, excessive spending, substance use, risky sexual behavior, quitting. The person may quit their job suddenly, making major financial decisions without planning, and so much more. This actually leads to the person eventually starting to experience guilt, shame, or financial hardship after their manic episode.
I can imagine, because now the individual has to deal with the consequences of their actions. How is bipolar disorder diagnosed?
So only a qualified mental health professional, a therapist, a psychiatrist, can diagnose bipolar disorder. So the person would go through clinical interviews, symptom history, family history, observation of mood patterns, and medical evaluation to rule out any other conditions. There is currently no blood test or brain scans that can diagnose bipolar disorder. Sometimes it does take years for a person to get their diagnosis. Many individuals are initially diagnosed with depression before manic symptoms become apparent.
The good news is that bipolar disorder is treatable.
Yes, it is. That is very good news. It is very treatable. So, some of the treatments include mood stabilizers, antipsychotic medications, certain antidepressants when appropriate. Also, therapy like cognitive behavior therapy, some psychoeducation, family therapy, interpersonal and social rhythm therapy. There are also some lifestyle supports, so consistent sleep schedules, stress management, exercise, a healthy routine in general, and avoiding substance misuse.
Let's break the stigma. As we typically like to do, let's talk about our favorite celebrities who have openly talked about their mental health and bipolar disorder.
Gladly, because I love breaking the stigma and letting people know that they are not alone. So, there are several well known individuals who have publicly discussed living with bipolar disorder. Mariah Carey is one of them, Demi Lovato is one of them, Catherine Zeta Jones is one of them, and Selena Gomez. Their stories reduce the stigma, and I'm so glad that they have chosen to be open with discussing the things that they have been through. So another celebrity that we all love to talk about is Kanye West, and I want to use his story as an example of the. I've talked before about the stress vulnerability model, and the stress vulnerability model talks about how we have to balance our biological selves and we have to balance the stress that's within our environment. Now, I'm pretty sure the people that are directly around him knew that he was struggling with his mental health along the way, but when his mother passed away, the grief of that loss threw his mental health into the public space. We started to see things happening, and people started to give different explanations and things like that. But sometimes when we experience a huge, major shift in our lives, something that impacts us very, very deeply, that's when our mental health issues and the things that we're experiencing can really impact our lives very, very directly, and it can be very easy for the people around us, and if we're in the public space, for people in the public space to see that there is something going on. And so the stress vulnerability model warns us to be very careful with ourselves, be very compassionate with ourselves, and take good care of ourselves. And it also lets us know that, hey, sometimes there are things that are going to happen in your world that you have zero control over, and it can send you into a tailspin. It can impact your mental health so severely that you may no longer have control over the things that you're doing. And coming to that acceptance of, man, I have something going on, that when I am overly stressed, when I am impacted by the world, sometimes impacted by things that I can't control, I'm going to experience these specific symptoms that are going to impact me in very direct and very negative ways.
So, Gladys, what do you want our listeners to take from this discussion?
I want everybody to know that you are not alone. If you are somebody who is impacted by bipolar disorder, whether it's you that has been diagnosed with it or you are a family member of somebody who has been diagnosed with it, there is help for both of you. There's help for all of you. That's what therapists do. Therapists walk with individuals, therapists walk with families through all of these things, through all of these times that can be very stressful, that can be very hurtful. And we as therapists, that is what we do. That is the journey we walk with you. And so again, I will push, I push psychology today in, every one of these segments that we do, Lola. So I will push psychology today again. Go to psychology today. It's a website. So you go to Google, go to www.psychologytoday. And when you click the enter button and you click on the website, you can put in your zip code, and the therapists that are within your area will pop up. And you can email them, you can call them, and set up your first appointment and get that started. So, whether you are just the family member, you are the individual, either one of those people can get therapy and you can work through what it means, because both sets of people are impacted by a diagnosis like this.
If you are listening to this, you are not alone. We see you. Leave us a comment and let us know that you were listening. Like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.